You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Can you not be so weird? Why are you so weird?
Oh, because you don't let me go spin in and out. You said you don't like it, so I can't do that.
Listen, I know I've been saying this for a minute, but we're going to take this show this is going to be like a real talk show one day. We're not going to have our toys. I'm not going to wear a hoodie. One day this is going to be like a real talk show. Because I tell people all the time I have a talk show because it is. And I'm manifesting being Oprah one day.
Yeah.
Oprah
I want to get like the rip away tie. So like looks like I put a suit and tie on, but it's really just Velcro.
That's ridiculous. That is not trending where I just said I want to go. That's for sure. What are you doing, Scott?
I'm actually in a place called an office where I think I work. So there's about 125 people here in Kansas City at Hub International. Gave away my office 7 years ago, but a lot of action going on at our company, a lot of training, a lot of hosting. We're doing a tailgate in the parking lot and cooking hot dogs, and everyone brought coolers, beers, and chairs. So just a lot of action going on. What about yourself? What's cooking in your world with all this beautiful weather in Kansas City?
I know it is really pretty outside. I haven't been outside yet since I took my kids to school, but I am going to do something really fun tomorrow. I want to talk about that because that's going on in my world. So I have been over in the TikTok world for a minute, right?
Yeah. Is that why we have people watching over there?
Right. Well, no, I ended up turning it off, but I was on TikTok live right before this. I couldn't figure out how to make them watch this, but what I've realized is I feel like usually Gen Z and millennials, well, millennials are getting old, but Gen Z is always a couple steps ahead of what comes. I think my biggest theory and the reason I'm the most successful in marketing is usually because what happens next starts the youngest generation, like the 20-year-old generation, and works its way up, right? And marketing wise, if you can figure that out, you're kind of a baller. That's why I've been doing so well over the past few years. So I've been spending a lot of time on TikTok to figure out what's next. And when it comes to live and live streaming, I've been saying this is majorly coming next, but what does that look like? So tomorrow I'm going to test it out over here on LinkedIn. So essentially, are you frozen, Scott? No, you're blinking. Okay, just making sure. Lives over on TikTok go a lot different than lives here. Lives here and lives in old people world are very planned out, more professional, which is great. What's up? That's my friend from TikTok right there. But what I'm noticing is trending and what I think will eventually work here, which I'm going to try tomorrow at noon on my LinkedIn, is lives in the 20-year-old or more pop-ups. You pop in when you want to come. It doesn't have to be planned. We don't have all the back and forth. Are you coming? Are you not coming? Everyone's so comfortable about being on video now that they will jump on at any point of the day to chat if they have something to say about that. So what I'm going to do tomorrow at noon on my LinkedIn, since I know my LinkedIn audience is watching, is I'm going to have a pop-up networking where I'll just bring up people and they can network with other people. And, we've shifted everything else about the workload, about the workday to online, except for that networking piece. And I think there's a major point of opportunity to be able to network online, especially here on LinkedIn. So I'm going to have pop-up networking where you can pop into my LinkedIn. I've kind of figured it out. You'll click a StreamYard link. I'll bring you in and you can start to meet people like that. So make sure you come in at noon. So that's what's going on in my world, Scott. Real exciting things.
Yeah, no. And I appreciate Burns and Mac and Bank of Blue Valley to give us this platform. We got a Burns McDonnell question for the middle of it, but I actually met two people today I'd not ever met before. they've been working at my company for 2 years because we connected online during the pandemic and referred them into my organization. So there is a lot of benefit to online networking, and people just need to realize it.
And we even have someone from my TikTok network watching that. There's so many entrepreneurs over there that I'm starting to see a lot of cross stuff too. So, all right, let's say hi to everybody here watching. We've got Glenn. Hi, Glenn. We're excited to have you here today. Christine, we are going to bring in Trevor as long as he gets his Wi-Fi working down there. And Jennifer, looking forward to an amazing show. Scott, keep the Velcro suit on hand for. Please do not encourage him, Jennifer. Please. All right, Scott, nobody's here to see us. We already know that, right?
They want to see the panel.
If you are watching, though, let us know if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Let us know who you're here to see. Tell us what you do. We know a lot of people do business over here in the comments. We get emails about it all day, every day. All right, I'm going to play Scott's cheesy music. We're going to bring in the panel. All right, I watched who was here first. It's Tiffany. Angie, and Nathan, and last, certainly not least, Trevor. Trevor's gone. And just like that, Trevor's out. Trevor's having some Wi-Fi stuff, so he's going to come back real quick. Glenn is pumped. He is pumped. All right, let's get going. Tiffany, we're going to start with you. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Well, I am an empathy coach. I'm Tiffany Clemons. I'm an empathy coach, and I have been doing that for a while. I do a lot of professional development, and I have a background in being a public school educator for about 10 years. What brought me to Kansas City? My family. I was doing a lot of networking and enjoying living in Washington, D.C., but I really missed being around them, so I came back home.
Where were you? So you were in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah.
How did you get to Washington, D.C.?
I went there for college, and then I just decided I was just going to live there post-college.
Nice.
So, Tiffany, what does an ideal client look like for you? And that's the first question. We have many more.
Oh, I love that. The ideal client would be transitioning from being an entry-level worker to a supervisor. So I like to work with people in mid-level management. I try to get them to take a dual perspective since you're shifting from being entry level to a supervisor to begin thinking like someone who's been promoted. So you'll have to understand your new role as a manager, but also remember what it's like to be an entry level worker and to really segue using the key skills of empathy and compassion and emotional intelligence and neurolinguistics, which is basically knowing what to say as a leader, and just to make sure that your transition is well justified.
When did you have your sales pitch of an ideal client, mid-level management? I always ask people to have that be their sales pitch because those are the people that are most often going to receive the training, even though the leadership is the one that needs it. Mm-hmm. But if you say train mid-level folks to leadership, it's like a foot in the door. How did that come to be? Was that just always your approach, or were you a sales nerd like me thinking, oh, if I get mid-level managers, I'm going to get the whole company? Like, how'd you think of that?
I would say that I'm not a sales nerd. I've had to rely on a lot of help and a lot of coaching from different people. The thing is that usually people who are CEOs at the top of companies, they're usually the ones, Trevor, who really have good skills, good communication skills. And that's probably the reason why they're CEOs. A lot of people who are CEOs, they're very patient, they understand all aspects, and they're just really good at things. And so I realized the entry-level people will only be as productive and as loyal as their mid-management. So that's how I began to just really pitch towards them. And I will say, Trevor, I agree with you. It is very difficult. A lot of people want to put the blame on either senior management or the new people coming in. But it's like middle management, you're really the pillars. So I prefer to work with you all.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've had people confide in me that they, as CEOs, they're not very good at empathy, which sometimes can be a plus side. Because if you're hiring a bunch of people, you don't hold on to people too long. You're able to make decisions quickly, although empathy is probably the most important thing anyone can have for business. So I'm not saying that's a negative thing, but it's really interesting. And then how long have you been doing your business, and do you do it all throughout the country?
Virtually, if we're going to do anything. I have not done any traveling as of yet. Everything has been here. I feel like if I could just really master Kansas City, I can do anything, but I really care about this city so much. There's a lot of opportunities for growth. So there's a lot of opportunities for mid-management. And I believe your other question was that the senior levels usually don't have a lot of empathy because there's a lot of changeover.
I want to clarify. I've had people say that, and sometimes very small. I don't want the audience to get it wrong. Sometimes you need a leader that if you're hiring a lot of people and things aren't working out, they don't hold on to someone too long, but they have the empathy to handle it with grace and work with them. But you can sometimes, as a leader, have too much empathy, which can hurt a small company. Now, big company, you can never have too much empathy, but a small company, it can implode everyone else. So I want to clarify that tiny nugget because it's unique.
You're right. There definitely needs to be a balance. One of the things I do with the coaching is a lot of role play. And for example, let's just say I'm a middle manager, or let's say Trevor is a middle manager, and I come as an employee and I say, hey, Trevor, you know what? I've been dealing with depression and I just kind of want to take some time off. I was thinking about taking some time off and I just want to talk to you about it. Now, sometimes people in Trevor's position will say something like, man, Tiffany, I wish you had said something earlier. And we don't realize that that is really the wrong thing to say, because for one, now I feel like I should have scheduled depression better. And we all know that that's not really something that can be scheduled. So when I come to you, the best thing to say is, Tiffany, I'm glad that you told me. What can I do to help? And a lot of times people, when they say, I wish you had told me earlier, they're just saying, I wish I had known so I could help you sooner. But that does not necessarily mean I'll take it that way.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful in the verbiage that you use. And that's what I like to help coach people on. And thank you for bringing that up. Can
I tell you how good my friend right here is at empathy? He's just continuing to let you call him Trevor, even though his name's Scott.
No.
I was saying earlier, because Trevor is the one that's trying.
Trevor's the one that keeps going missing.
Yeah, but you know what? He's a prospect. He owns a really, really good company. And so Trevor is a young president of a great organization. So, but yeah, he'll come back in.
Thank you for correcting me. And I'm sorry about that, Scott.
You're good. I made it super confusing because I said Trevor's name 42 times while we're trying to figure out his internet earlier. So, but I would have, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you should meet Trevor though. Maybe he'll come back. I don't know.
We are friends with Trevor, by the way.
Lacey says, Glenn, we need to catch up. Look at all this networking happening over here. And Paul said he's watching on Netscape. That funny Paul every week with his dad jokes. By the way,
I think that's the best dad joke we've had.
Netscape.
Yes.
Angie, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City? Angie, you're on mute.
First of all, I have to say something really funny because you were talking about TikTok, Aaron, and my 15-year-old daughter has been trying to teach me how to make them. So my age is starting to show. And so my 9-year-old is learning how to make them also. Oh, yeah. But you make fun of Scott with his Velcro outfit. So I'm thinking maybe you can incorporate that into your TikTok.
Oh, I think I have a different demographic, but we could get Scott one.
Yeah, right. Get him in one.
At TikTok. Don't let your kids follow me. Okay, anyways, who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas?
Sorry about that. I had to say that. Angie Hundley. I co-own Oak Creek Nursery and Landscape, Baser, Kansas. And I also am an author for a memoir that I wrote. In my personal time, I do a lot of volunteer work for foster care, different nonprofits around the metro. And I've been in Kansas City area pretty much since high school, roughly. Went to college, Baker, just kind of stuck around the area and seriously just can't get away. So
how did you start your company? And also, if you have a book near you that you'd like to plug, it's next to you, definitely hold it up. But how did you start your company? What was the origin of it?
So it's so funny because my business partner, he had a turf management business and I knew him from the gym. I worked at Fort Leavenworth doing some military analyst stuff. And long story short, he approached me about some marketing. He had gotten my name from somebody and wanted to grow his business. And so I went in, helped him look at his business. He was going to buy a nursery. And what I quickly realized is that he really needed his business to be more efficient, not ready for marketing growth. And so over a span of about 9 months or so, I worked alongside helping him with that. And then he ended up buying a nursery and talked me into partnering with him. And so I ended up basically joining 2 dinosaur businesses into one and rolling out Oak Creek. And that's kind of how that got started. So, you know, it's fun. It's rewarding. We've grown quite a bit. We bought over 6 acres about 7 years ago, and we've just slowly expanded the business. We're getting ready to launch an event space, hopefully this fall. There's some city red tapes you have to go through, but we have a creek that runs along the backside of our property. And we've had photographers that have come in and taken photos. And over the years, they've been telling us, you guys should set this up as a wedding venue or an event space, and just kind of blew it off and went around to the metro area and visited some places. And it just kind of hit that, you know, we probably could pull something like that off. And so that's kind of what our venue is right now that we're working towards, is getting that launched. So kind of excited about it.
And then you have written a book, correct?
Yeah. If you hang on one second.
Where's it at? Where is it at?
It's in my office. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. It's funny because I kind of forget about that part of it until somebody reminds me that I wrote a book.
Where can we buy the book and what's it called?
It's called A Recipe for Bad Lemons, and is on Amazon. And I think there's a link on my LinkedIn page, and I have an author page, angiehundley.com.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good job, Scott. Good thing you remembered her book.
I know. I forget about it all the time.
Scott, you're on mute too.
So we're part about being in live in the office. We're getting books. We have people coming in and out. So we're hosting. Funny enough, in an office, you know what's critical in an office? Diet Coke.
Oh.
I tell you what, if you have Diet Coke, it gives people that little extra pep. Not promoting soft drinks, but sometimes during a long day. So there's someone coming into the room in this conference room, and they needed some Diet Coke. So I apologize.
I literally drink like 42 Dr. Peppers a day.
Ooh, so there you go. There we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Angie. Look, Glenn's now networking with Lacey. Ben's looking at Paul's jokes. There's all sorts of networking going on over here in the comments. Make sure you go over there.
That's awesome.
All right, Nathan. Now that you so kindly put your blinds down for me and we can see you, who are you, what do you do, and how do you get to Kansas City?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So Nathan Walts, CEO for WorkForge. We're an e-learning company focused exclusively on various subsectors within the world of manufacturing, in particular around industrial technology related roles. I've spent time in a number of different parts of the country and globe throughout my career, but originally from Lawrence, Kansas, and during my migratory patterns, just ended up back in Kansas City and growing this business that we started up here in the area, here in our home.
So Nate, if you could kind of give a little bit of background before becoming CEO. So give us the background of where you've been before that. And then I have a follow-up question with empathy. I think you do a great job of having empathy for everyone that works for you. And I want to know where that came from. So maybe weave that into your story of how you got to where you are and why you do a great job of having empathy for everyone that works with you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for the compliment. I appreciate that. Yeah. So my background, I guess, when you talk about sort of your adult career, I worked in a time when Daimler and Chrysler were actually one organization, which would have been a while ago and probably hard to believe that was the case, this day and age. But I grew up in their banking sector in the world of finance for about a decade on the East Coast and a little bit of time in Detroit as well. And then actually had a kind of a career flip around the time of the financial crisis, as a lot of people did who were working in finance, and actually kind of went the total opposite direction and went to work in healthcare and education. And spent about 12 years working for a really large organization now called Ascend Learning that's based in Kansas City and Boston. And then coming out of that, working at EdTech for 12 years and kind of sales, product, and strategy is how I ended up here. But, I'd say somewhere in that pathway, I'd kind of credit empathy along a couple different lines. One, I do think Lawrence is kind of an interesting safe haven for just diversity and also for just sort of cultivating different ideas in a kind of a safe spot, especially with the University of Kansas, which I attended as well. And then having a kind of a single mom, I think that also played kind of a role. I spent a lot of time kind of listening and learning mom, and she was in a corporate world Sprint. So I got to hear a lot of her trials and tribulations along the way, being kind of a middle manager as well, since that's been a bit of a topic here too. And I kind of agree that when you're a middle manager, and having heard this before, you're kind of in this tough position where you have to manage up and down. You don't really have the opportunity to kind of focus one direction or the other. So you get kind of chance to hear those stories and then kind of apply it in your career. And then certainly working in healthcare, whether it's with educators or whether it's nurses or doctors or people in allied health professions, you're completely focused on students, you're focused on patients. And, that's you can't help but just learn from people who have to have empathy in a variety of different ways every day. And sometimes it's a really intense situation. So I think just an opportunity to see it from a lot of different smart people.
Yeah, Angie, I apologize I didn't ask you this question, but we'll go back to it, weave it in. But Nate, what does an ideal client look like to you, and what problems are you solving?
Yeah, let me start with problems we're solving, and then I'll roll to that one. So the problems that we're solving are focused on kind of 4 metrics, which are not necessarily unique to manufacturing, but I'd say they're very compressed to manufacturing. So the first piece is, how do we improve the onboarding experience? In particular, new employees who are coming into manufacturing, it can be a very different sort of environment in some ways relative to expectations, maybe other segments of society or the industries they've worked in before, in particular service sectors being kind of an example. Secondarily, how do we get them productive as quickly as possible? So time to productivity is a big deal to the employer and certainly employee as well. How do we create a ongoing engaging experience? And then how does that all culminate in really kind of bending the retention curve, in particular in manufacturing, where retention is really critical, in particular around these kind of technical skill sets that people have to work to get, and then how to keep them in that business or keep them in that organization to really reap the full benefit of it. So 4 KPIs are really focused on for the employer world. And then what's our ideal customer? It's kind of interesting. So in the last 18 months that we've been growing this business, I would have told you that a company that was maybe smaller, that really hadn't had a lot of focus on learning and development might have been the ideal kind of thesis, but it's actually changed. It's actually more your mid-sized to larger companies where they've made some level of commitment to learning and development within their organization, whether that's because they've adopted, maybe a partial program, they've chosen to allocate a small team or a leader who would focus on developing that in the first place. And what they need to do is they need to be able to scale that program in a way that can be far more expansive in terms of the types of content and learning materials that they need. And then also programmatically, how they can really install it and get the most out of it. Because as we should all remember, most companies are not built to be learning companies. They're built to produce something of some kind. And so having an organization that you can partner with to really kind of broadcast that or mature that process or turn it into a programmatic process, is really, really important.
I feel like you and Tiffany need to do a little cross-selling with each other in terms of your ideal client. And so when you mentioned pivot, I feel like, when Aaron and I started this show 3 years ago, everyone said pivot because it was COVID. Yeah. But no, it was like a really welcome thing for you to say. How did as a CEO, did you have a lot of ego invested in like, hey, we're going to go this way, and then you changed it? Like, how did that go? Like, were you supported, or was it just like what the market was telling you? Give us that background of how you decided to pivot.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think it's a little bit of both. Like, one thing that I tend to believe is that you hire great people and you have them tell you what to do, not kind of the other way around. So that's sort of thing one. Thing two is, if you're really looking at it from a strategy perspective, I'm sure everybody's listened to Simon Sinek before, but, if you're a good product or strategy person, you really do have to attenuate yourself to the idea of like, how do I build my feedback loops from the outside in, meaning that the customer is really the focal point, and how can I, get as much customer feedback? How can I get as much of that information as I can, synthesize it both with the customer and internally to really make some discrete decisions on what you're going to do and how you're going to go to market. So it kind of has to come from, both those ends, but, it certainly starts with the customer, starts with being, on site if you can be. That's obviously been tough over the last 3 or 4 years with COVID, but, certainly opening up a little bit more, but really having a chance to kind of be there in person on site, watch employees and see how they engage, see what they need help with, same with management. And then, how you bring that information back to your really smart people within your organization to really think about how you put that into action is really kind of the most important thing.
I like it. We're going to get to the Burns and Mac question of the day, but man, the comment section is pretty hilarious.
It's hopping today over here. Okay. I don't pull up your comment if you're making fun of me. Sorry. Okay.
It's a great comment. It's a funny one. It reminds me of Aaron and I have a buddy that was, he's like a popular Chiefs fan, and Tech Nine's on TMZ, and then just randomly he's going behind him. It reminded me of Forrest Gump when, Forrest Gump would be on all these famous settings and he'd just be in the background doing stuff. So either way, I thought it was funny, Aaron.
I'm not pulling it up. All right, here we go. Here's the Burns and McDonnell question of the day. It's going to mute you, so don't unmute yourself. You'll come on mute as soon as we're done. But as soon as our Burns and Mac employee is done asking this question, Tiffany, please answer.
Hi, I'm Sunitha Levin, and I work at Burns & McDonnell, helping advance telecommunications across the U.S. My question for today is, how do you manage your time, and how much is it worth to you?
What a great question.
Yeah.
Tiffany, go.
Well, I will say this. I allot myself about 12 hours a day to work. And I know other people, I've heard them say, well, if you don't sleep, you're not accomplishing much. But I do believe in getting adequate amount of sleep. I do believe in self-care. And I do believe in taking only a small amount of time, out of your day to dedicate it to your work, and then reserving time for family and self-care.
It's an amazing answer, but the critique I want to give you is you need 2 Rubik's cubes, one that you're playing with that looks jumbled up, and then one that magically just is done, and people are like, oh my gosh. So where did you learn that 12-hour a day work ethic? I think it's the best drug, the best habit a young person can learn in their 20s out of school. Where did you learn that work ethic? Do you feel like you got lucky, or do you feel like you had it all the whole time?
Well, I used to do a lot more. I used to try to do everything, and I really didn't have a lot of boundaries. I would really work for 16 hours a day and sleep the other 8. And I got very burned out. And actually, I was very unpleasant to be around just from being tired, and it can affect what you eat and how you treat people. It's just everything. And so I did that by default. It wasn't working, so I tried something better. So, yep. No more than 12 hours, then you have to move on to something else.
So do you feel that, hear me out, do you feel like you kind of got, I don't want to say lucky, because sounds like a lucky story to work really hard and not have boundaries and, really, get after it. But do you feel like it's served you well later in life to have that experience, to know what a full hour, like a full day looks like?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. It was definitely a lesson learned. A lot of people who, I look at them and I say, whatever works for you. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, that definitely would not work for me. And I'd be interested to know 5 years from now if you're still doing it. So I did what works for me, and I can understand why other people will probably be on this path to learning something similar, how self-care is more important than anything else.
Glenn says Patrick Mahomes agrees with you.
So I have a Whoop, and the number one thing that I do.
What's
it's
a Whoop?
A Whoop measures heart rate, sleep, anxiety. I got really sick and lost 60 pounds in 2 weeks, so I never wanted to get sick again. But basically, if you don't let your body rest, it's so critical, and it can show you from like 1 to 100. So I have a good time on Thursday nights, like to hang out. Aaron's with me a lot of times. And so I go from like a 5% to 98%. And it's just simplistically an extra 3-4 hours of sleep. But yeah, I completely agree with Glenn. And
Whoop.
it's okay to go. It's okay to go to bed at 9:30. It's okay. So you don't need to stay up. That extra 1 or 2 hours can do wonders.
Oh,
What a
yes.
whoop.
So Whoop is, I'm not trying to pitch it, but I mean, it is $30 a month, but it does measure everything. So unlike an iWatch, which is an iWatch is great, but you have a lot of things going off. All this does is has an alarm. So this goes off, it vibrates at 5 a.m. and that's it. Other than that, just measures it.
Does it have a clock? Does it tell you what time it is?
Nope.
Listen, I feel like if anything measured my anxiety, they would check me in somewhere. So I'm not sure.
Aaron, I'm totally going to put this on you next time we hang out, because it just started measuring anxiety like a week ago. It's like a new feature. And so, yeah, it's interesting.
A Whoop.
All
right. I bet you're going to be their brand person. I do want to tell you, I was your biggest supporter when you were sick.
Yep.
Losing 60 pounds in 2 weeks is my dream. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's the hard way. It's pretty painful, but you
How come I broke my leg and gained 60 pounds? It's not.
You snapped your leg.
All right, Angie, how do you manage your time?
Like Tiffany, I set priorities and boundaries, and exercise is probably one of my top priorities. When I exercise, I know I am more mentally charged. Sleep is another one too. So I set my priorities for the day, usually the night before. I know what tomorrow is going to look like, and I kind of stick to the list of what I know I'm going to get done in terms of task. And then if things come shooting at my way throughout that day, I make the determination if it's urgent, I address it now, or can I move that to another day? And that's how I stay on task and make sure that I get my priorities done throughout the day. So it's kind of how I manage my time, so that I don't get my head on a swivel or I'm playing whack-a-mole and running around. And so if it's not anything that requires my immediate attention, I try to push those things off, for another time.
Should you work out? Does it always have to be in the morning?
No, I do it all throughout the day. Like I'm better if I do the morning. I feel like I'm more alert. My workouts are better, and I feel like I have more energy throughout the day. Where if I work out in the evenings, I feel like it's almost like I have to tell myself, okay, I have to do this for myself, even though I know I need to do it. But I feel like I have way more energy if I do it early in the day versus later in the day.
Everybody's really excited about your Whoop. I've never even heard of this thing.
I haven't heard of it either. That's pretty cool, actually.
So I would tell you, I copy off people. So like when people are doing things really well, so like, if Angie says, hey, I'm doing cold plunges and I work out in the morning and I hear it 15 times, I do it. But basically a bunch of people in investment banking and private equity were given this by their HR so that they could work more. So they basically were saying, if I can measure your productivity and your sleep and get more out of you, this was their way to do it. It's the same that athletes do. And to the point of what Tiffany was saying, is sleep is by a long shot the number one thing you can do for recovery if you're sick. So it's not medication. It's just drinking water and sleeping and making sure that you're good to go. I don't know. If you would agree with that. I mean, you've been on the fitness train, for a decade longer than myself. What do you feel of circles you hang with and advice you have for people?
I certainly agree with the sleep is probably the biggest thing. I think it starts from there. You get rest, and it's not even just one night. It takes a couple of days of getting your body in a routine for you to really benefit from that. And it's funny because on the weekends I say I'm going to sleep in, but sleeping in really is the same time. Like the best thing you can do is have your body in the same routine, like sleeping in on the weekends and then trying to get your body back on track, throughout the week is actually more difficult than if you just have a steady routine. So it's rare that I'm asleep past 8 o'clock in the morning, but during the week I've got kids to get rolling off and, employees and just very robust environment. So I prefer to get up and get after it and get on with my day.
Me too.
Yeah.
Do you think Trevor's okay?
He hasn't texted. I'm sure he's just, again, he's like everyone else on the show. He's running the company. He's like, you know what? Can't get on. I'm friends with Scott and Aaron. I'll come on again. But the other thing
Aaron's
about
gonna quit coming on the show if I don't stop picking up. I've been on fire these past 2 weeks.
one thing that's important though, I think, is with people, because everyone's an executive here, is you just have to stay healthy for your associates and the people that work at our companies. And so, it's just a misconception of, you're trying to be in shape for a vain reason. I mean, I've never tried to be in shape to do anything other than be productive for my partners at work and my family. So
I literally drank a Mr. Pibb for breakfast and ate Applebee's for lunch. Can we go to the next thing? Quit talking about fitness. Just kidding.
Nate, how do you measure your time?
I don't know that I measure time so much as just being sort of a regular curator of my schedule. And that means like multiple times a day, as I'm sure everybody on this call does, sort of looking at what's ahead the night before and, looking during the day, multiple times and, sort of being fluid as you can be based on how things are kind of coming at you to some degree. But, really blocking off, appropriate amounts of time to, start your day and also finish your day, I find is helpful, meaning that, if you're working in an 8 to 10 hour block, is there a period of time at the beginning of the day where you're just sort of collecting yourself, collecting your view of the world, and then you're ready to go into a lot of back-to-back type of activities. And then you kind of cap the end of your day almost summatively with, hey, what do I need to finish? What do I need to set up, either for later in the evening or for the next day? So I think, back to the point that Angie brought up, which is, how do you create, patterns? Whether those are personal patterns or whether those are professional patterns or how those blend together often, is really, really important because, if you're trying to, swing your schedule in a lot of different ways and it's wildly different from one day to the next, it's really hard to create kind of what, you would say in continuous improvement, like flow to your day. And how do you create, throughput that's consistent? And that's just really, really hard if there isn't consistency to it. So I'd say just, curating your calendar, being thoughtful about it, having some level of rigidity to it, but also being open to change and then leaving yourself windows, for other things that are going on, whether that's how you finish the day or, fitness, for example, in the morning, or just kind of knowing, hey, at the end of the evening, if I had to make myself go to the gym, like I'm not going to get a lot out of that. But if I know about myself, hey, like the 3 o'clock is like the latest time I can work out, or 6 o'clock in the morning is the best time for me to work out. Just knowing that stuff and being attentive to it, along with your sleep schedule, is just huge, in terms of your overall productivity. And again, not to just yourself, to your point, Scott, or your partners, but also your family, your friends, kids, things like that.
We're like a fitness show now.
Yeah, Aaron, let's make everyone jealous. Let's flip the script. What did you get at Applebee's? What meal did you order? Because, get us all excited.
This is so ridiculous. I have a DoorDash addiction right now.
Oh, it's DoorDash Applebee's.
DoorDash Applebee's. And so I order from 3 places. I order from Applebee's, Qdoba, or Longboards. And I just get either burritos or wraps every single day. And my CPA is going to kill me because it's getting very expensive. But I got the chicken fajita roll up with extra Mexi Ranch. Okay.
We need a tax advisor. If Erin's working from her house and she's ordering meals, that sounds like a write-off.
Oh, if you turn my DoorDash addiction into a write-off, we're going to be best
Just
friends.
add a credit card to it and document it and throw it in the QuickBooks, and you're cooking. You're cooking. If we sing the song, I'm sure you could convert it to the song about being bougie.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, how do you manage your time, Scott?
If I don't work out in the morning, Monday through Thursday, then I can't work out. I feel like people that can do it throughout the day, it's pretty impressive. But I'm not very good at it. I've been breaking up with the same people for the last 4 or 5 years in terms of the networking side. So you kind of got to, I guess Tiffany was talking about having boundaries and teaching people how you want to be communicated with. I think it's really key on time management. I don't think that was mentioned. But I think if you share with folks what it is that you do and the types of people you do work with, and more importantly, the types of people you don't work with and why it may be a misconception, I think that's something that's really important. Aaron, how do you communicate with people to manage your time?
I mean, I'm so chaotic about it. But the way that I manage my time in general is just calendar blocking. So like my team knows if it's open, then that's where they can put meetings. Like we're pretty good about just put meetings if you need to communicate. And I'm pretty transparent with my calendar, right? Like I don't really make too many things private. I think honestly, I don't think anyone on my team watches this show, so I can say this. So nobody tell them because we're in the trust circle. But you can tell if we're hiring or doing something on because all of a sudden stuff gets private. Besides that, I have like my therapy on there and my doctor's appointments. But that way I feel like just being transparent and then the calendar blocking is how I manage my time. But that's also helps then my team manage their time like that because now I know that we're remote, but they feel open to being like putting a dentist appointment in the middle of the day where sometimes I hear other people say their team are hiding when they go to that kind of stuff, right? So I don't know. Anyways,
I will say one thing before you ask the next question to the panel. I feel like I'm very, very open. We're in the trust tree, as we mentioned.
Well, nobody watches.
So, I work with all women, and I feel like I'm great. I'm a great business partner, but it took me up until 3-4 years ago when my partners would put a block. It'd be like 3 hours. It wouldn't say anything. And I'd be going nuts. I'm like, 3 hours? Like, what are we doing? We really need this time slot. And it was for a hair appointment. And what I didn't realize is that it takes a really long time to get scheduled. And then it takes a really long time to get rescheduled. And
Right.
It's an important, sacred time. So for probably 4 or 5 years, I've never said a word about it. But I just think for people that have co-ed partnerships, that's one thing that is sacred in terms of a blocking of time that you wouldn't know. I grew up with 3 brothers, so I didn't know, but that's a sacred time. Just food for thought.
I just want you to know it takes a long time to get our hair done. Thank you, Scott.
There you go.
Thank you. So you guys learn all sorts of stuff on this show. Listen, Lacey wants to make one more fitness comment and then we're done being a fitness show, okay? Staying in motion is like riding a bike. The more you move, the better you balance. Thank you, Lacey. This is more my type of comment. Longboards rules.
Yeah, Paul.
All right. We have another question for you guys. Ready? Can you guys believe it's the end of Q1 already? What is going on? Anyways, I'm sure you guys all on January 1st set your goals and dreams. How close are you to accomplishing those, Tiffany? Are you on track for the year? Are you ahead of track? And what are you going to kind of implement for Q2 to finish out the year like you wanted to?
One of the things I love about goals is that you can always change them. You are not married to them. You have to reevaluate what works. And one of the goals that I had, as opposed to necessarily make it monetary or quantity aligned, I just said that, honestly, I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to help people. And I don't want it to necessarily just be clients who book something. I wanted to be empathic towards everyone in my life and without getting burned out and just really taking care of myself. And so that's on the way. And then I just wanted to get better as far as social media. And I think I'm on the right track so far.
What are you trying to do on social media?
So I went to Metaverse's event last year, and they're really trying to get me into like the Instagram and just really taking over that and posting every day. That's something that I would like to do.
How do you feel about TikTok?
I would love to do TikTok. I love TikTok.
You do good on TikTok. You just let me know if you have any TikTok questions.
Okay.
I'm loving it over there. Angie, I just saw your message on LinkedIn just now. Sorry.
Yeah, I ignored that. Sorry. I found you in my spam folder for whatever reason.
Oh, that's weird. Markings on spam. Okay, how are you doing for your year so far? And what are you looking to accomplish?
Well, I'll be very careful not to bring it back to the healthy kick.
I'm just kidding. If you want to talk about health,
honestly, like for me, I had a little bit of a health scare the latter part of last year. And so I had kicked my year off with taking care of some health matters. And so for me, this year's been dedicated to taking care of my health. And then the other part of it is just spending more time with my family. Being in your 40s for me, I had genetics come into play where I recognize that no matter how healthy you are, whether you work out or, whatever you do with your time to eat right or whatever, you can't defy genetics. And so I was one of the unfortunate people that inherited the BRCA gene. And I had some changes last year, which resulted in a double mastectomy in January. So I've been recovering from that. And honestly, though, talking about workouts though and staying healthy is probably what's helped me stay mental, because it is very mentally challenging when you do all the things that you think you're supposed to do, and then you get hit with something that is really beyond your control. And so for me, my health is one thing that I wanted to take a priority over, and then 2, family time, because I think once you get a little bit of a scare like that, it makes you recognize what is important. And I think, owning a business and, being an author and volunteering a lot, it's easy to spread yourself thin and maybe not put your family first, because you get complacent with them always being there. And so I think for me, it was like eye-opening to realize that this is my time that I can make memories and spend time with my kids and my family, where maybe I took it for granted before. So.
Well, I'm glad that you're on your way to recovery.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Very, very fortunate.
Through that.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. Now I just educate people. If you're adopted and don't know your family history, you should get genetic testing.
I'm like kind of questioning myself if I'm showing you the right amount of empathy or not, because
no.
Now that
Tiffany will judge.
Yeah. Angie, what are ways that you've done a better job to being present with your family? I think it's a reminder that we all need to be better at, but I think you alluded to, sometimes we take for granted that our family is always there. Have you done anything that you could help the audience maybe be a little bit more present with their loved ones?
Well, it's interesting because like Aaron had said about TikTok, like I used to like make fun of my kids. They're always on their phones. Like it's like a fashion statement to have this thing plugged into your face all the time. But that's the world that they're in now. That's how they communicate with their friends. I mean, let's just be honest, during COVID, we were all sitting in front of computers for a while. And so for me, it's just maybe taken time to understand some of those things that I've made fun of over the years, like TikTok and, Instagram reels and whatever. And so we kind of share those around with each other through, a group text exchange. And then, we'll sit and like look through some and laugh together with them. But also I started doing puzzles, which is crazy. My dining room table is now a puzzle table. So we throw a 1,000-piece puzzle on there and we'll sit around the table and we'll have conversations while we put a puzzle together. And afterwards we glue them and we hang them on the wall, we initial it. And it's just been something that has forced us all to slow down and have that family time, have conversations and talk about our days. And so it's funny for me because my brain was always so wired to go, 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 that the thought of doing a 1,000-piece puzzle probably would give me anxiety. But now it's something that's kind of like fun because we'll all like have this running joke, like who got the most pieces in for the day, or, come home and sit around the table and strategize the puzzle. So just that's probably been the biggest thing for me, I think.
Do you do any 3D puzzles yet?
Oh, I don't know if I can handle that yet. I'm just going to be honest. I've learned how to strategize puzzles now because, you don't think about how much work goes into putting a puzzle together, and you open the box and there's 1,000 or 1,500 pieces and it's like, oh my gosh, where do you even start? But it's kind of.
I always swear they like messed up one piece, like every time. I'm like, that one's not here. It's not.
Oh, or the worst one. I think we've done like 14 puzzles since Christmas. I'm not joking. Like that. I know, right? But the worst one is we finished one up. It took forever and we were missing a piece. And I had my robot vacuum apart. Like I was convinced it sucked it up somehow. Like, but one piece was missing. And I'm like, oh gosh, all that work. But yeah.
What'd you do? Go buy the same puzzle?
No, we just put a backing on it and colored it and pretended like you can't see it. So yeah. Yeah.
I kind of have that same thing with my kids. They're on their phones a lot, but we have a thing at dinner. We don't always eat dinner together, but if we do sit down for dinner, phones go in the middle of the table. And if you touch it, then you don't get it for the rest of the night. So nobody touches it. And that's kind of some of our best conversations. Yeah. They're like forced to talk to each other and myself. So Nathan, you've been so patient. What is your year shaping out to be like? And what are you still looking to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on the personal component like everybody else has. The one word that sort of occurred to me in the last few months as I was thinking about this year was the idea of play, which seems like a really maybe like an odd word to think about as an adult. But I have 4 kids. My oldest is 15. My youngest is about to be 3. And kind of back to some of the other points, you kind of get going and you get moving through these, cycles or rhythms and things, and you kind of just do things, and you don't necessarily think about why you're doing things or if those things are sort of relatable to other people, in particular, like your family. And so my under 3-year-old has reminded me more recently, I'd say in the last like 3 to 6 months, because she uses the word, play quite a bit, come play. And, you sit there and, you reflect on maybe older kids and you say, maybe I was good at that at one point in time. Maybe there's times I could have been better at that. And then you look at, this will be our last kid will be our youngest one. And you sort of say, well, I'm not going to get that again. Right. So how can I embrace that moment of this concept of when she says she wants to sit down and play, that I do that, because, you can turn that away and then they won't come back and they won't ask you to play with them anymore for, all the reasons we know, for whomever on here is, a parent. And, I sort of extended that to the same thing I think about in the office. Play is actually how humans learn. And so the more playful we can be in terms of just introducing fun, comedy, lightheartedness into, what we think is probably very serious on the day-to-day, which actually really isn't, the better off we kind of all are, from just how we get along, how we recognize what our kids need, stuff like that. So that's just been a big theme for me in the first quarter. And I'd say I'm am I on track? I'd say I'm doing better than I did in 2022. And, I'm hopeful I can keep, raising the bar on myself in 2023 on that front. So.
What are your 4 kids' ages, all 4 of them?
Yeah, they're all about to change 1 year here in the next couple months. So got a 15-year-old, 12-year-old, 10-year-old, and 2-year-old currently.
Oh, you took a break.
Yep, a little bit of a break. But a good break. Again, I'm not sure I'd be reminded of the last concept had that not been the case.
I like that. Okay, Scott, we have 10 minutes left. You can do my least favorite part of the show if you want.
Okay, I will not be doing your favorite middle school lunch meal. I'll go deep.
This is an icebreaker. Scott's favorite part of the show.
Icebreaker. So this is going to be deep, so feel free to change the answer. But Tiffany, a lot of times people say they don't have regrets. And I know I have plenty of regrets. I mean, my wife can share marrying me was hers, but in general, though, do you have any regrets? And if so, what are those regrets that maybe the audience can learn from?
I can understand why people say they don't have any regrets, because it was a lesson learned. But I truly believe, Scott, that anytime that I've hurt someone, that I do have a regret for hurting that person in whatever capacity. And it's some people, if I could reach out to them today and apologize, like if I knew their last name, their new married last name, or could find them on Facebook, I definitely would. But it's I do have regrets for hurting certain people and the impact that it had on them.
Do you when you just run into them, how does it come up? Or is it just like, because I know I'm guilty of hurting people, but I've never got to tell them I'm sorry. I tell myself when I run into them, I'll be like, I'm going to say I'm sorry.
Yeah, in my mind. I don't know. There's a lot of ego there. There's sometimes I still feel like I'm right. I was right. But, when you think about it, if you lose a person, sometimes you have to think, is it worth it? And that's the whole big thing that I talk about with empathy. You're retaining quality people in your life, and you can be right and end up alone. So, that ties into the regret, and I certainly learned from it. And yes, when I've had the opportunity to apologize, I have done so.
Isn't it the worst when you do that and then they're like, I don't know what you were even talking about?
I know.
That is deep. You can be right, but you can be alone. That's a heavy thing. Now, Angie, maybe going through something where maybe you thought about regrets. Do you have regrets when things get so close to maybe not being so healthy, even though you are very healthy, but having something like a diagnosis? Do you have any regrets?
The only regret that I can ever really acknowledge, because I agree that I don't think you can say you regret something, because I think that's the path you were chosen for whatever reason. But I love the beach, and I travel there to Florida as much as I can. But I regret sometimes I didn't move closer to the beach at a younger age. before kids, before life, before you get settled. And so that's probably my only real regret. But I feel like I'm not really like at this point in my life, I'm still soaking up the beach, just not the way that maybe I intended or wanted to initially. So that's, I have regrets, but at the same time, I'm just making the most of that.
You just live there when you're old.
Yeah, that's my plan. But, someone once told me that the best years of your life is between 40 and 60, because that's when you still are somewhat healthy. You still can do a lot of stuff. But then after that, it's when your body changes. It's when you can say, maybe you're not going to go zip lining, or you're not going to go jogging, or whatever it may be. And so it's like and I think that 40 to 60 range is probably because we're probably a little bit more financially stable at that point. We're a little bit more in our lives where, our careers are probably established. And so I think that 40 to 60 mark, there probably is some truth in that. And so I guess that's probably why I travel while I can, but
Just keep
I'm not
traveling.
going to go surfing by any means, but
Angie, as someone who's 40, I totally agree.
yeah, I feel like, because I'm 42, but I feel like there's a point where you look at life and it's like, gosh, if 60 is kind of that little cutoff point where things start changing in me, like I got a lot of stuff I want to get done.
No, I know a lot of people that in their 60s that are having a blast. So
Well, I'm going to have fun as long as I can, but we just don't know how life happens, So
yeah, well, they're making all sorts of technology. We could live to 200. We don't know.
that's true.
So Nate, Nathan, do you have any regrets that you can think about in life?
I'd echo what everybody else said. I don't have regrets per se. I'd say that if I had an opportunity to, maybe adjust myself a little bit, I would probably target the word like authenticity. I think we get asked as people to be a lot of things as we, come into the world and mature, right? And we think a lot of things, and people think a lot of things, and you have all this, sort of self-awareness that kind of comes back at you, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. And I think a lot of times as people just kind of filter ourselves based on what we think others want from us or those expectations. And maybe the one thing I would have taken off my own shoulders was a little bit less of the self-filtration, and allow a little bit more of the authenticity, and being kind of okay with that, and also being okay with the idea of if you put out more authenticity, yeah, it's okay if maybe people don't respond to it, or don't like that or something like that. So I'd say that's the biggest critique, and probably the biggest opportunity I would kind of look back on, and just maybe take that saddle off my back if I had a chance to.
How about you, Scott?
I regret, kind of like Tiffany. I feel like like when you say something hurtful, making sure that you find a time, or maybe, I always think of Steve Buscemi and Billy Madison, where it's like crossing off people I wanted to kill. Like I never want to be that person where you said something mean and they really like dislike you for it. So apologizing to people. And I regret not seeking more advice when I was younger, in my 20s, because I feel like I just could have done my 20s way better. And then also I never, sorry, Aaron, sorry. I never took physical fitness serious after 19, and I regret that. Aaron, what are your regrets?
I don't do deep.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I probably regret. Well, see, what's hard for me is like when you regret stuff, a lot of times that means if you wouldn't have gone that road, this wouldn't have gone. Right?
Totally. Yeah, we totally get. Yeah.
Hard for me. So like I regret not coming out sooner because I came out later in life.
Yeah.
So that's a big regret. But if I would have, then I wouldn't have had my children. But then to Tiffany's point, I hurt a lot of people along the way because I wasn't living my authentic self, right? And I left the beach. So I could have just been gay by the beach and it would have been great.
Man, we could have matching Hawaiian shirts and just been bartending together, and we would have killed it.
In rainbow. Okay, so there we go. Thanks for making me uncomfortable. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. You guys were an absolutely great panel. Thank you so much to our watchers. Apparently, LinkedIn has taken away how I can see how many people watched us, but I feel in my soul a ton of people watched us today because there was a lot of great comments over here. Ray really liked the one that said goals can be changed. Very well said. Come tomorrow to noon to my LinkedIn page. I'm going to do pop-up networking. It's going to be a great, fun time. And thank you to Burns & McDonnell and Bank of Blue Valley. We will be back next week with our CEO show. And we will see you then. Have a wonderful, great week. Go and